Bobcats, to another edition of From the Field to the Fans. I'm your host, Odus, Evbagharu, and with me, as always, I have my good buddy, Quixem. Before we get into that, we're in a special place right now, the brand new Bobcat locker room. Looks pretty nice. What do you think?
It's awesome. It's finally nice to be here in this kind of setting for a big game against Navy. And they're coming off a bye week, 65-point victory. Things are looking good.
Great thing that you mentioned the bye week. Got to talk to Coach Fran at his Tuesday luncheon, and kind of talked about what the offense is doing to kind of stay in rhythm in the bye week and what the defense has to do to prepare for Navy's hard option. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that. Coach, you're going to have Navy coming to town, 857 yards in 2 games. What's the message that you're telling your defense this week?
Well, there's a lot of challenges for the defense. Toughness, execution, assignment-oriented, still aggressive. Dive, quarterback, pitch, and pass. This style of offense requires you to play more assignment-oriented defense because of the way they run a triple option and read people and not block them. And if you don't tackle a fullback, you'll pay. And if you don't tackle the quarterback, you'll pay. And then you got to fight off some blocks and play the pitch if they get it to that point.
They'll bring in Keenan Reynolds into town. Coach, have you ever seen a player quite like him?
Well, having coached as long as I have, I've seen a few, that are athletic and can run and can still throw pretty good. He's tailor-made for this offense. But down through the years, there's been some really great ones that the academies have had that are like him. And usually when they have a great one like they do right now, that's when they're their very best. They've got a nice ball club. They're real solid on defense. They're real solid on offense. And then you put the Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback, and, they're really good.
Coach, first week, offense does really well. Score 65 points and they get in a rhythm. Then you have the bye week, and now they're playing again. What do you do in the bye week to kind of keep that rhythm going so that way they don't lose it heading into a game like Navy?
Practice. Hate to oversimplify it, but you try to put the kind of things together in practice that you're going to have to face on game day. You can never replicate the speed of the game in practice unless you scrimmage completely, and we don't want to do that this time of year. But we go pretty hard, and we just don't tackle to the ground, but we full speed block and get off blocks and things like that. So it worked out in our preparation for week 1, and hopefully it'll work for this one.
Coach, you mentioned, the home crowd. This is the first time since 2007 that the Bobcats are going to play consecutive home games to start off the season. How important is it for you to start off to a 2-0 start at home? And most importantly, how important is it that the home crowd comes out and supports the Bobcats as you're trying to go 2-0 at home?
Well, 2-0 would be a great start, especially with the second one being a team like the Naval Academy. And our student crowd was awesome week 1, and they were into the game and really made a difference, I think, for our players. This is our stadium. We've got a nationally admired and ranked, not ranked, but acclaimed program coming in. And if you want to see a good football team, this is a great opportunity to be in our stadium, and we need it to be a home field atmosphere. We need for our fans to do their best to put our players in that 7-point advantage that hopefully you get when you play at home in front of your crowd. I'm sure there'll be a lot of military people here that'll support Navy also, but we got to make sure it's a maroon and gold, maroon and white night.
Yeah, so Coach Fran basically talking about practice. It was simple, kind of when Allen Iverson there. Just practice for how the offense can keep rhythm and how Tyler Jones and Robert Lowe and Terrence Franks and Japhus Gaines and Ryan Carton and, the plethora of skill players they have on offense on how they keep the rhythm and how they keep momentum from the 65-0 win that they had against Pine Bluff on August 30th.
And that's the thing. Practice is important. That's why Coach Fran set up an extra bye week just specifically to prepare for Navy, because they have a very unique offense. And for an offense that runs 91% of the time, it's a very quarterback-driven offense. And Keenan Allen, he kind of has the keys to the car. He can do multiple things on any play, and that kind of differentiates them from most teams because they're just so difficult to handle on any given play. And it's going to be tough for the defense to maintain discipline and also be aggressive against Keenan Reynolds.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Keenan Reynolds, he's in some Heisman talks. And I saw an interesting quote from him on his knee getting hit and him kind of being sore. And he said that, in order for him to win the Heisman and compete, he has to play teams like Temple and Texas State. Now, I don't know if that's taking a shot at Texas State or if that's taking a shot at Temple and, some lower level schools. But, Navy 2 years ago won 21-10, and it was a close 21-10. So, hopefully, the Bobcats respond. Hopefully, they've had a good 2 weeks to prepare for Navy, the hard option. And this option is different. They've added the shotgun element over the couple of years. They don't run it as much, but they do stay under center. You have the wing, the in high school we call it the wing T. So you have the T, he's in motion, he'll stop, he'll come back. Then you bring the other guy, well, he'll stop, he'll come back. And then you have certain guys in motion. And it definitely takes mental focus, it takes mental preparation, definitely takes a certain kind of discipline to play Navy. And I think Coach Fran said it the best. When you watch Navy play, you have to beat them because they don't lose. And I think that's one of the highest compliments a coach can pay a team, is that they're so disciplined, they're so focused that, in order to beat them, you have to beat them because they don't beat themselves. So it's going to be really interesting to see how mentally prepared the defense is and how they're going to go about stopping the number one rushing attack in the country.
And it goes down to what you said, discipline. I mean, this is a team that averages 35 minutes of possession per game. They don't turn over the ball as much, and then they don't just make stupid penalties. And Coach Fran anticipates them to have the ball for 40-plus minutes a game. And it's tough to win that way, but given that their up-tempo offense was so successful last week and that they can do that in a little bit of thing, they really need to improve on their red zone efficiency. In their last game, they went to the red zone 3 times, only scored once. That's a thing that you cannot do this week, because if you can't, you're kind of toast. You have limited opportunities as it is, and if you can't score against Navy, who's not going to beat themselves, you're kind of sunk.
Yeah, and I completely agree. You have to capitalize when you get in that red area. That's one thing the Bobcats struggled with last year as well. But this year, I think with the up-tempo and the way that they're trying to run the offense, it should help a little bit. I know against Pine Bluff, you're still trying to work some things out, and they had some long gains. So, that'll kind of kill red zone efficiency a little bit. But it's going to be interesting, and everyone, the big matchup obviously is the defense versus the offense. The defense of Texas State versus Navy's offense. You're facing potentially a Heisman candidate. Your defense is going to have to be disciplined, maintain focus, but it's going to be interesting what the offense does as well. Navy is not defensively as strong as what people think. 408 yards, I think, yards per game that they've given up to Ohio State and Temple. Temple gave them a run for their money. I think a lot of people saw the Ohio State game and thought that, might be in trouble come week 3. But when you saw Temple do what they did, Bobcats have hope. And I think one of the key things and one of the key elements that, I've kind of talked about this week is tempo. I think if Texas State can control the tempo and they can do the things that they need to do, I think they'll be successful and win the ball game. If Navy is able to control tempo, not so much time of possession, but if they can control the tempo, I think Texas State might be in a little bit of trouble.
And I like this matchup because Navy is kind of a polarizing team. They run the ball a lot, and they kind of just put you in weird positions. The secondary, they're going to be covering the run a lot more than they're accustomed to. The defense is going to be kind of shifting the gaps. Defensive end needs to set the gaps. It's really interesting to see Texas State playing a team that's completely different from pretty much anyone on their schedule, and adjusting to them will kind of show how well they can fare in the Sun Belt Conference going forward.
Yeah, there will be one opponent, though, that Texas State will play this year that's very similar as Georgia Southern. If I remember correctly, they're number 2 in the country in rushing. They run a kind of a similar hard option, just like the Georgia Techs of the world and stuff like that. So it's a good way for them to prepare for a Sun Belt opponent. It's interesting that you say there's some players. There will be some players, and we like to call this the spotlight segment. Usually Quixem will have 3 players that he thinks that will be key, and I'll have 3 players that I think will be key in the matchup when Texas State faces an opponent, and I'm going to let him start it off. Who do you think your 3 key players are and why?
To start off, I'll go with David Mayo. Joe Plabartu in the first meeting in 2012, he racked up 16 total tackles. If they're going to be running the ball as much as I think they will, David Mayo will be in the middle, trying to create havoc and having those tackles available for him. So he's the first player I'm watching. The second player is Michael Odiari. Defensive ends are really important against this team because they do cut blocks, and you got to be prepared to set the edge and also make sure that they don't cut back and just gash you for unnecessary yards. So that's going to be really important. And the last guy I'm looking at is Rob Lowe. He's the running back, led the team in all-purpose yards against Arkansas Pine Bluff. And if he can get, first downs and just move the offense, keep them like, Tyler Jones at ease, then this team will have a lot better chance of outscoring Navy, which is all really Fran really wants to do.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Odus because he's going to have to set that edge. He's going to have to set the edge. David Mayo as well. But I think for what Texas State and what Coach Thompson might do is I think you put your best athlete on the quarterback. And I think Mike Arakpo is definitely a guy to watch out for, just like you mentioned the Bart 2 stats. I think Arakpo's that guy. I think you have to match him up with Keenan Reynolds because I think that's the best matchup that the defense can have, and I think Arakpo can answer the call. And then the two other guys are in the secondary, Colby Targan and Aaron Shaw. Those two guys are going to have to, if the running backs and the quarterback of Navy gets past the first level and even the second level, those two guys in the back are going to have to tackle. You can't be afraid today. Secondary, a lot of people think, well, not a lot of guys tackle in the secondary, but those two guys are definitely going to have to step up because I think it's not just a one-man thing. It's not just a two-man thing. It's an 11-man thing when you play Navy. When they play Temple, 6 guys rush for 40 yards each. So when you have a hard option like that and you're not just relying on one guy and you have a lot of options, it's going to be a team thing. But I definitely do think that those 3 guys are going to have to step up their game and definitely get a lot of tackles.
And the strength of this Navy offense really isn't the complexity of it and the fact that, they're going to run the ball at least 9 times out of 10, but it's the utility of their running back core. They have 5 guys with 100 yards rushing this year, and it's just like you don't know who's going to be the next guy. And since you can't key on Keenan Reynolds because he has several options, it's really tough to, say, okay, we got this guy, just got to set the gap, set the edge, and just stop him. But it's not like that. There's 5+ guys just gashing you, and it's just tough to, adjust to that when you're playing teams like that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting week. Before we get out of here, pick 'em. We're both 1-0. I think you got lucky 2 weeks ago, as so did I. But no, both picked Texas State to beat Arkansas Pine Bluff. What's your prediction? Give me a score.
It's tough. I mean, I kind of see this as a coin flip game. We're at home. Navy's a good team. But the way I see it, I feel like Navy will make a couple more plays than Texas State. My final score would be Navy 31, Texas State 24. Really close match. I don't think it'll be too high scoring, but it'll come down to the wire for sure.
Well, the Bobcats, they have the flyover. They're going to have the American flag. Navy's coming into town. I think we repay the favor from 2 years ago. I think the Bobcats pull it off. I think this team is primed. The leaders that they have on the team in Arakpo, Odus, Lowe, Ben Ish, I think these guys are ready. And hopefully this will spring some kind of win streak heading into Illinois and Tulsa and Idaho and obviously Lafayette on Tuesday night. So I believe the Bobcats will win 21-10. I don't think it'll be a high-scoring affair at all. I think both defenses come out and show up. But I do think the Bobcats, they don't stop the rushing attack, but they neutralize the rushing attack, and that'll allow for Navy to score 10 points. But I think the Bobcats pull it out 21-10. I think Robert Lowe gets 2 rushing touchdowns, and Tyler Jones throws for another. So as we, from this beautiful, beautiful locker room, Quixem, do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No. It's tough to play a team like this, but if they, get 400 yards rushing, all it matters is that they outscore them by 1 point. And that's all Fran said. So if you're just looking at that, just be okay with, if Navy gets what they do, because that's what they do. But all it matters is outscoring them by that 1 point.
Yeah. And quick note, for the first time since 2007, the Bobcats will be playing 2 consecutive games at home to start the season. So it's very essential for them to start off 2-0, and it's pretty important that the Bobcats come out and show support. As of Wednesday night, 1,000 tickets away from selling out, so that's really, really important. And if you guys have any questions, comments, go ahead and leave it on the video at theuniversitystar.com or tweet at us at universitystar, #Field2Fans. For Quixem Ramirez, I'm Odus Evbagharu, and like I always tell you guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.